Hey guys, I'm coming at you from my dorm room in France right now. So if you've been following my videos over the last month or so, you know that I'm spending most of the summer in Europe. And right now, I am currently in Paris. I'm doing a short study abroad program with my university, but we're doing classes here in France. So it's really exciting, and I'm taking French classes, of course. So I just wanted to make a quick video to let you know the 5 methods, or I guess the 5 techniques, 5 practices that I'm using this month to learn French. Now, of course, I'm taking French classes, but that's only part of it. I really believe that if you're going to learn a language, you can't just expect the teacher to do all the work for you. You have to take the initiative upon yourself to learn the language. And so that's what I'm doing. And I have 5 main methods or 5 techniques that I'm using to attack the French language from a bunch of different angles. I feel like it's a really good comprehensive way of learning. And the first, I don't know what you would want to call these, the first step or the first technique that I'm using to learn French is just simply living in France, being in France, making friends with French people, speaking to the employees in the store in French, eavesdropping on strangers in the metro, and even when I'm with my English friends, trying to speak, or my English speaking friends, trying to speak French with them. And reading signs and advertisements in French. Of course, being in France just helps when you're learning French. You'll see different signs, and you'll listen to people say different things that you've never heard before, and then it kind of sticks in your memory because you have a time and a place and a location and a story behind the first time you heard these words. So that's really useful. But like I've said in some other videos, just being in the country alone is not nearly enough to learn a language. So that's just one of the 5 things that's helping me learn French this month. The second thing, of course, is French classes. I'm taking 3 French classes over the course of 1 month. So it's a lot of work, a lot of studying, and it's useful. People have different opinions about the utility of taking language classes, and of course, that's not everything. Taking classes is, if you think you're going to learn a language just by taking a class, you're wrong. You have to put effort into it. You have to take it upon yourself to learn the language. You can't just learn a language in a class, but they are useful. And for me, it's particularly useful in pinpointing some of the areas of weakness that I have, because when you're learning a language by yourself, a lot of times you can tell that you have weaknesses and that you don't fully comprehend how to use a certain grammatical feature or something like that, but you won't always know how to recognize your areas of weakness. Being in class really helps with that because you have an expert there at your disposal, someone who already knows the language that you can ask very specific questions, and you can, you talk back and forth with each other, and you can give them examples of what you think is right, or how you think you're using the language correctly or incorrectly, and they can give you feedback about the way that you're actually personally learning it, and the mental ideas that you have of the way the language is supposed to be in your brain. You can kind of bounce it off of them and see if you have that correct. So classes are really useful. Of course, not everyone is able to do classes, but one thing everyone is able to do is number 3, which is I'm using an app called LingQ. And this is an app that's created by a Canadian polyglot Steve Kaufman. And I've read and I've heard a lot about this app before. I've watched quite a few YouTube videos by Steve. And I've heard differing reports of it, so I just thought I'm gonna give this a trial. I'm gonna try using LingQ for 1 month while I'm here in France. Essentially, LingQ is I don't even know how you would describe it. It's like a podcast mixed with kind of like a blog in your foreign language, and they do there's a bunch of audio files and a bunch of articles that you can read and listen to in your target language, and you're able to listen to the audio of the articles that you're actually reading. And the most important thing about Link is that you can always click on any word that you're not familiar with, and it'll give you a definition right there. And it remembers the words that you're really strong at and the words that you need help remembering. It seems like a really good app. Like I said, I've never tried it before. This is kind of an experiment. I'm going to give it a 1 month trial period and see how it goes. Now, I've been using Link so far for about a week, and it seems really, really good. I'm going to give it a full month to kind of see how well it works for me. But just so far, my initial gut reaction about this app is that it's like maybe the best language learning app I've come in contact with. It seems really helpful, and I'll do a longer full review on this app, and it's a website too. I'll do a whole video on this app when the month is over, after I've had more time to process my feelings about it. Because at first I really liked Duolingo as well, and then I kind of started to see some of the flaws in that system. And of course, Link has flaws too. It's not the perfect app, and it has its uses, and then it has other things that it's not as good at. And even Steve admits that in a lot of his videos. But just so far from what I've seen, and from the experience that I've had with this app, with Link, and that's LINGQ, by the way, not LINK. It's kind of a weird spelling. But so far, the experience that I've had with it is just really positive, and I think it's helped me a lot, even just in the last 7 days. The next technique that I've been using, technique number 4, is extensive reading. And I just bought this book just the first day that I was in Paris. I don't know what it's called in English. The Guardians of Ga'Hoole, I assume, because I don't think that word is translated, but it's like a young adult novel about a family of owls. I haven't gotten that far into the book yet. But I thought a young adult novel would be probably just about the right level for me, since I'm not a native speaker of French. And I've been able to read it pretty well. Like I've mentioned in previous videos before, that extensive reading, just reading a lot and reading for fun without stopping to really study and nitpick about grammar and all that stuff, but just reading for understanding. There are some linguists and second language acquisition specialists that believe that this may be the best method for learning a foreign language. I don't know if I would go that far to say that myself, but there are linguists who believe that, just so you're aware. And so I've been reading this just about every night for 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something. I would like to read more, but I've just been really busy with classes and stuff. So hopefully I can kind of up my reading time a little bit as the month goes on, and hopefully I can read this whole book within the month, and if there's time left, then I'll buy another one and try to plow through that. Like I said, this is a young adults book, so it's not super it's not super intense, but I have found that there's a good number of words and stuff in here that that do kind of throw me off, and I'll want to stop and look them up, but I try not to do that. I did a little bit for the first few pages of the book just to kind of get the feel of the setting and what was going on in the story. but I try really hard just to read through without stopping and worrying about single words here and there. And you know, it's just another supplement to the other things that I've been doing. The last and final, the fifth technique that I've been using to learn French this month so far, and I just started this a few days ago, but granted I've only been here in France for a few days, is I carry this notebook around with me everywhere I go. And every time not every time, but whenever I see a new word in French that I really want to remember, you know, every once in a while you'll just come across a word that sticks out to you and you think, that's a really useful word that I'll need to know. Or sometimes I'll run into a situation where I want to say something and I don't know the word in French, then I'll write it down in here. Even if I don't have a translator handy, I'll just write the word down in this notebook, and then later I'll translate it. Or if I'm in a situation where, you know, where I run into a word and by context it's clear what the word means, or I have someone to translate right there, then I'll write the word itself and the translation in this little notebook. And my goal is to get 10 words every day. And I didn't really succeed this day. That was Wednesday, the 4th. But my goal is to get, I don't know if you can even see that because I think the light from my window is washing it out. Anyways, my goal is to get 10 words per day, and each page is one day. And then at the end of the day, I have this stack of papers here, and I make little flashcards for myself. And before bed every night, actually before reading my book every night, I take like 15 minutes to go over the flashcards from that day. Well, first I have to make the flashcards from that day, as well as the flashcards from the last few days. And this is a technique that I used a few years ago when I lived in El Salvador learning Spanish, and it worked. It was very helpful back then. So I'm trying it again. You know, I just kind of started this a few days ago, but I have a good maybe 30 flashcards right now. And what I do is I write the English word on one side, and then on the opposite side, I write the French translation and an example sentence. And the important thing is that the example sentence doesn't come from my brain. You know, it's not just a sentence I made up. I get example sentences from the internet, from Lingui.com, or you know, a lot of times there'll be an example sentence on wordreference.com, or on, you know, whatever dictionary you like to use. And that's important because you don't always know how to use a word in your target language, even if you know what the word means. It's just this strange thing where sometimes you'll know what a word means, but you're using it wrong, or you know, there's some shade of nuance that's just different between the two words. And so you really want to use example sentences that you know for sure are accurate to the way that the language is actually spoken. So I just use little example sentences on my flashcards to give me a little bit of context and to give me an example of how to use the word itself. And so that's really useful. You know, I like this method of learning vocabulary because all the vocabulary words are things that I've come up with myself, or they're things that I've found useful, or I've personally run into throughout the day. It's not like some prefabricated vocabulary card deck that someone else made that they think will be useful. Every vocabulary word in this flashcard deck has a story for me. There was some situation during my day where I ran into this word, or I ran into a situation where I needed to know that word, and that's going to stick in your memory better than just looking at some random flashcard that someone else made. So those are my 5 techniques that I'm using this month for learning French. We'll see how it all goes. Most of these are techniques that I've used before, except for link, of course. But I'm really expecting to learn a lot of French this month. It's 30 days that I'm just dedicating just to language learning. I'm taking one culture and civilization class while I'm here, which is interesting from a historical perspective. Um, but other than that, that's my only commitment. That's not language related. And really, even in many senses, my culture and civilization class is language related. So everything I'm doing this month is just dedicated to learning French and perfecting my French. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a very beneficial month for me, and I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on the techniques, how they're going, how my French is progressing, and what you guys can do to emulate the rapid progress that I'm going to be making this month. So thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you guys later.